homemade tomato sauce in the Instant Pot. This year, I'm gonna do it in the crock pot. I know it's faster in the Instant Pot, but I actually gotta stand there with it. You know, you've gotta saute. The only time you're not there is the little bit of time it actually pressure cooks, because then you got it back on soup and you're stirring constantly so it doesn't burn. And I have so many tomatoes to process that I needed to do something where I could put it in there in the evening, let it cook all night, and then tomorrow on my lunch, I could get it bagged up and in the freezer. Because I still am not canning. I really need to do that. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I have this 1 pound bag of baby carrots. I'm going to use half of it. This crock pot is a small one. Let me see if I can figure out what size. I'll probably have to look it up. But it is not big. Maybe 4 quarts? I don't know. It's small. I'll look it up and let you know before we finish the video though. So basic same recipe that I use for my Instant Pot homemade tomato sauce. Carrots to give it some sweetness and some, you know, good old carotene. These are my homegrown onions, and I'm going to use enough of these to equal about 2 onions. And then the rest is the tomatoes, which I need to process, and that takes a long time. So I'm going to get everything prepped off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll put it in together and send it on its way for the night of cooking. Okay? All right, I'll be back. Okay, here's my half a bag of carrots chopped up. And as you can see, they're not real fine. But one of the things I do with the Instant Pot is I actually saute the onions and carrots together. If I have celery, I'll throw a little bit of celery in there. If I have bell pepper, I'll throw that in there. But we're trying to make this one pretty close to what we normally do with the Instant Pot to see the difference in flavor. So now in here, there's about a tablespoon of olive oil, and I've turned it on high, and oh, I need to wash that. And I'm going to throw my carrots in there and let them kind of get warmed up on high while I prepare my onions to go in. I'll put my onions in there, mix it up, and then I'll let them cook away on high until I get all my tomatoes ready to go in. When I put the tomatoes in, I'm going to turn it down to low, which on mine is 10 hours, I think. All right, I'll be back. All right, so there's about 2 medium onions. I'm going to take this spoon. Just going to, you see, they're not sauteing. Just wanting them to start getting warm, because by the time the tomatoes go in here, I want those to start being soft. So now I'm just going to throw in the onions as they are. Again, I did not chop them small. It's more like a rough chop. Okay, and then I'm going to put the lid back on it, and I'm going to let these go ahead and cook on high until I get all my tomatoes prepped and ready to go. All right, so here is the tomatoes. Basically, all I did was I cored them, and then I cut off the little blossom spot at the end, and I cut off any blemishes. Oh, there's one I have to cut off. And then as I put these in here, I'm going to look to make sure I didn't miss anything like that. I just cut it off. I do not peel or seed my tomatoes. And so I'm just going to set this aside so I can do that. And then I just drop them in the crock pot. So I can smell the onions. The carrots are not soft yet, but they've got a head start on the tomatoes. And that's what I want them to do. So I don't know, it might have taken me 30 minutes to do this. And I'm just going to fill up the crock pot until I can't put any more in. All right, let's see what that looks like. All right, so it's full, but I need those tomatoes to start getting warm and hot so I can start pressing them down. So I'm going to leave it on high, and you can still see I have a lot of tomatoes left. So as these tomatoes cook down, I'm going to be adding to the crock pot. All right, we're about 10 minutes in, so I just squished them down a little bit. I'm going to start adding more tomatoes, and I'll probably do this about every 15 minutes until I get enough tomatoes in there. We'll see how many of that pot I can actually get in there. All right, so my tomatoes were from the fridge. They were cold. If you have time, sorry for the dogs. Try to let them come up to room temperature. Roscoe, do you know I'm making a video? All right. Anyway, so I kind of mixed it up because the ones on the top, the tomatoes on the top. Let's try this again. So the tomatoes on the top were cold, so I want to rotate them. So I did stir them, and I just use a potato masher, you know, and mash them down. You can see some of the carrots and onions have come to the top. And I'm probably going to throw in another handful of tomatoes as this starts to cook down. You can see all the juices coming out, if I can film it right. Right? So that's going to cook down a little bit more, and I'm going to give it time to do that since my tomatoes are cold. It'll give the other tomatoes the time to come up to room temperature, and then the next process won't take too long. But really, we're going to cook this overnight anyway. So, I'll be back. Okay, we can see that the tomatoes are finally getting juicy. So I'm actually going to add a little bit more to it. And I did look it up. This is a 4-quart slow cooker. But I am going to add a few more tomatoes to it. So, again, look at how much I'm filling it up. If yours is an 8-quart, you're just gonna fill it up with tomatoes. But on your onions and carrots, you're gonna double them, right? And remember, if you're adding celery, bell pepper, any other vegetable, you might need to do a little bit more. Wrong lid. That goes to my other tomatoes. This is the correct lid. You might need to add a few more carrots to keep the sweetness in there. We do not add salt. We do not add pepper. We add no spices whatsoever, so that we get just a complete vegetable tomato sauce. And then when we go to use it, that's when we spice it up. Anyway, this has got to cook, so I will come back tomorrow so we can finish it up. See you then. So here we are the next day. I've turned off the crock pot. I've let it cool a little bit, and now I'm going to use my immersion blender. If you don't have one, you can put it in a blender. Just make sure you do let it cool. And you can see it's still pretty chunky. So I'm going to get busy and start getting this all mashed up. Okay, I wanted to show you. I don't know. It might have already... You can see the steam. This stays pretty hot for a while. So that's why you want to let it cool, because it will splash on you. Can you see that steam coming up? So it's still pretty hot. But this is just about a minute. Still got some more to do. I want to make sure that there's no chunks of skin left in there, because remember, I did not peel my tomatoes. So anyway, let me get back to business and get this all smoothed so it can finish cooling and I can put it in some Ziplocs. So let me get to that. Hi, I'm back with 2 bowls of homemade tomato sauce. So basically what I do is I have these tiny little stand things from Amazon. This just slides up in there, and I just take 2 cups for each bag. Trying to minimize the mess. Pull this down. Zip it. Get all as much air as you can out. You don't want these to get freezer burnt before you go to use them. And then I lay them on a sheet pan and flatten them out so that they can freeze flat so they can stack. This has a little too much air in it. So then I'll just stack on here. I'll put them in the freezer, and that's all there is to it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Glad you were here. Bye.